Well, my name's Richard. I've been here at Givens for I think about 2.5 years now. Grew up in a small town in Iowa, Osage, Iowa, where there was a nearby river named the Cedar River, which I paddled quite a bit in high school, buddies and I. Med school in Wisconsin. I even managed to paddle some rivers in Wisconsin during med school and residency. But my whole career was in Wisconsin, mostly Eau Claire, and I started counting rivers in Wisconsin. And eventually, my first one was in 1969. By 2009, I had paddled 309 different rivers in Wisconsin, every single county, wrote about it, gave talks on it, so Wisconsin rivers were a huge part of my life. But simultaneously, I discovered whitewater and paddled with whitewater buddies in Appalachia for almost 30 years in a row. Eventually paddled over 50 Appalachian streams between Pennsylvania and Alabama, and discovered Asheville in that process, part of why I ended up here. Also many rivers in the West, virtually any canyon. I've been down the Grand Canyon 4 times, including in a solo canoe in 1992, which was crazy. Lots of other rivers in the West, lots of Canadian rivers, expeditions in the far north, crossing the Arctic Circle, month-long expeditions up there. Wild, beautiful times, and in the process just learned to love rivers, want to maintain rivers, became more of an environmentalist, wanting to preserve rivers through all that time. Still paddling now. I'm now up to 64 North Carolina rivers, just paddled a new one 2 weeks ago. Still paddling rivers out west. We're going to do the Salmon River in Idaho in September. So still a crazy guy. People maybe know me on campus as the guy that's got 7 canoes in his carport on Lady Huntington Lane. If you ever glance up there, you'll see my flotilla. I've had major adventures, memorable adventures, but possibly the most memorable one was this spring. And here I am at age 76 still doing this stuff, but we did a river in Utah called the Escalante River, which we've been looking at for decades. And it's rarely run because usually there's not enough water, because usually there's not enough snow in the mountains to have. But this last winter, as many of you know, was a heavy winter snow pack in the west. So there was enough water in this Escalante River. But the 3 of us spent about 10 days on this river. It was extremely challenging and exhausting. And at the end of the trip, we faced a 3.5-mile climb up a sand dune and up 1,000 feet to get all of our gear out of there. And unfortunately, one of my buddies, we came around the corner and he had fallen, didn't know who he was or where he was, and was injured and couldn't hike out. His leg was broken. He didn't know he'd had a concussion or something similar, and I had to hike out and get a helicopter. I had to hike out and find some people that had an SOS phone that were able to call in medical evacuation helicopters. So he was helicoptered out. I hiked back down to be with my buddy, and I said, "Scott, I don't think you can hike out of here. You can't hike the 1,000 feet. You can't go through this crack in the rock at the top, which is even me going sideways through it, and I'm a slender guy. My butt and my belly were dragging going through this thing. And Scott has a cardiac condition. So I said, Scott, I'm going to hike out again. Up I went the 1,000 feet, through the crack on the rock, got back to the car, and the cell phone worked, and I called a second helicopter. So this is a tale, kind of a misadventure, I guess you'd say, or a cautionary tale, which involved 2 helicopters, involved incredible challenge, and none of us were old or healthy, although I'm healthy, but my 2 buddies both had cardiac conditions. But we lived to tell the tale. Major adventure. I may give a talk on it here at Givens. Working on that. Yeah, so through all this experience on rivers, I grew to know the geology, the flora and the fauna, everything along rivers, and just grew to love rivers to the point where I wanted to maintain them, save them. And so in Wisconsin, I became a member of something called the River Alliance of Wisconsin, which advocated for rivers and dam removal and things like that. Largely through this, I became a member of Sierra Club, wanting to save wild places, wanted to save rivers all over the world. And so I think rivers helped me become an environmentalist, mainly because of wanting to preserve the beauty of rivers and the beauty of our planet. But rivers were the start of it.